Chapter 3 starts off with a flashback of us kicking a ball around with Nirmala, who's upset because she's having a hard time writing her characters, as she feels that they're getting harder and harder to understand. I mean, yeah, I'll say, I have no idea what anything is anymore at this point of the game, and I'm only 2 chapters in. People are dying from our psychotic girlfriend, this little girl keeps showing up and turning people into monsters. So, I feel like I'm in the same boat as Nirmala here. We tell her that maybe the princess can use a magic power or something to befriend people, which inspires Nirmala to continue writing. I feel like there's going to be a connection to this conversation and the gameplay in Chapter 3. I don't know, just a feeling though. I'm starting to feel like there's a lot more overlap going that I'm catching on. We wake up once again in the classroom, but with Raya nowhere to be found. We start to ask ourselves what is going on and how we keep waking up in this classroom over and over again. We need answers though, so we decided to go look for Raya again to figure out what happened again. We don't even make it out of the classroom before things already start getting weird. We run into one of the students and ask her if she's seen Raya. But as soon as we ask her about Raya, this causes the student to start glitching out while trying to say Raya's name, which causes her to, I guess, reset herself and state her opening line again as if nothing happened. We discover that every student is preparing for the Latang Festival, but that's the problem. Every student is preparing for the festival and working like their lives are depending on it, which, I mean, they probably do. Let's just be real here for a minute. We step outside and see more students frantically preparing for the festival. There are also some students who are glitching out for some reason, but I'm sure it's fine. We then overhear Lulu asking herself if she's hallucinating or if the school is actually getting weirder. Lulu states that she's been seeing a lot of strange things happening and asks us if we've seen it also. For some reason, Lulu is immune to whatever change happened since the end of Chapter 2. I don't know what or how, but she just is. Lulu decides to team up with us in our efforts to locate Raya, but only because she has nothing better to do. We start off by talking to Eric's old goons, who actually have no idea who he is or even remember him in any way, or our previous beef. What's even weirder is that they're actively talking about the festival and how they can help prepare for it. Yeah, so Raya is definitely resetting reality in some way. I don't know how or why, but it's pretty obvious to me at this point now that Raya is definitely doing a lot more than just killing people, making money spawn in our pockets, and stuff like that. There's definitely more going on here. So we asked the guys if they've seen Raya, and they actually acknowledged briefly before glitching out and acting like nothing happened. Yeah, there are definitely some puppeteering shit going on here. As we're trying to leave school, we encounter the teacher, Mr. Agung, who glitches out and demands that we address him as Major General Agung Myohono? I hope I pronounced that right. He orders us to put all of our energy into the Latang Festival, and this starts an argument between him and Lulu over who he really is. This, though, is when things get interesting. As they're arguing, a space dive option appears, but on Lulu. That honestly caught me off guard, as I was convinced I'd have to do a space dive on Mr. Agung to snap him out of whatever state he's in. But no, we have to space dive on Lulu instead. So we space dive into Lulu and find a bunch of Aflac duck swans things hanging around. We also see Lulu sitting on a throne, who is apparently a queen now. Yeah, it turns out this place is a courtroom and Lulu is the judge. I have no idea what's going on here, but I'm just gonna play along and make a lot of Aflac jokes while I'm at it. So it turns out we're the prosecution in this case, I guess, and our job is to prove that Mr. Agung really is a teacher at the school and not a major general. This starts a Phoenix Wright ripoff type of minigame where we have to cross-examine the defendant and prove that he's not who he says he is. I've never played Phoenix Wright before, so I don't know if my statement of it being a Phoenix Wright ripoff is accurate, but I know the memes though, so, and it feels familiar to that. Anyways, this means we have to do another fetch quest. This time, we need to run around the school and gather evidence that Mr. Agung is actually a teacher, and then bring the evidence back into a space dive and prove in a Phoenix Wright ripoff type of thing that he is not a major general. Look, I don't mind fetch quests in video games, I really don't. But when the entire gameplay is just fetch quest after fetch quest, it can get pretty tedious to me. That's just a thought I have on the game right now though. Maybe things will get better. We prove that Mr. Gung is not who he says he is, and then we get another space dive option. This is starting to get weird, as now we can do a space dive within a space dive, and I have no idea how this works, but apparently Lulu is the one who is giving us this power. The power of the cross dive. So we're told to do the cross dive into Mr. Agung's psyche to free his true identity, which is being locked away by some outside influence. And definitely not Raya. How could it be Raya? The cross dive isn't hard at all. We go in and it's just a simple lever puzzle to open some cages. And once we finish the cross dive, we end up getting a flashback of sorts between Mr. Gung and Raya. Mr. Gung tells Raya that she can't just leave school even though she's the Latang Festival Committee president. He also points out that money is missing and that there's a budgeting issue apparently that Raya's been neglecting. Agung then makes the fatal mistake of comparing Raya to Lulu in terms of leadership on the committee, which angers Raya, who uses her power on Agung. So, in addition to being crazy, Raya also hates being compared to Lulu apparently. I'm sure this will be further explained. We then finish up the cross dive by getting a medallion for the student president off a pedestal thing. So we leave the space dive, and then Mr. Gung apologizes for the weird outburst he had. Unfortunately, he cannot remember what happened to him, just that the last person he remembers is Raya, and the argument that they had. Agung then mentions that the school counselor had some concerns about Raya, and that maybe we could talk to her about it. Lulu also gets frustrated as Mr. Gung apparently doesn't even remember her, which she then blames on Raya, who she calls a weirdo. Yeah, those two definitely have bad history together. Lulu then states that she at least wishes that Agung could at least remember giving her the student council honorary medallion. But when we show the medallion to Lulu, she briefly remembers it before glitching out and stating that she has never seen it before. So we shrug it off and set out to find the school counselor to maybe get a location on Raya? Maybe? We find the counselor on a date of some kind, I think, and we decide to eavesdrop on her in a weird little minigame where you hold a button to listen to a conversation and let go of the button to stop listening when they acknowledge you. Through our eavesdropping efforts, we learn that Rickon, who's the school counselor, is worried about Raya, as it seems like she's carrying a lot of secrets and the weight of the world on her shoulders. We also learn that Raya is trying to buy a ton of fireworks, but we are unable to get an exact location as to where she was going to buy them. We decided to head to the community center to see the woman who helped Lulu get fireworks for the festival a few years ago. When we get there, we find that it's been burned to the ground and that the woman has lost her mind, telling everybody that she's gonna burn everything, apparently with a candle. This leads us to doing another space dive on Lulu and starting another court trial to bring the poor woman back to her senses. You already know what this means, right? It's time for another fetch quest! This time, we have to gather evidence to prove that this woman is not who she claims she is. Wait, what? You mean we've already done this exact theme before with Mr. Gung? You mean to tell me that the game is reusing the same quest and gameplay just with different faces? Whatever. I've come to accept that this game never really wanted to be about the gameplay, but rather just wanted to tell its story. Which is fine and all. Like, I enjoy a game with a good story like this. But the gameplay is pretty bad. And now I feel like I can say that honestly, and that things probably aren't going to change. I feel like the gameplay with this game is just going to be a bunch of fetch quests. After proving that she isn't who she says she is, we do another cross dive in Lulu. This cross dive is solving a confusing pipe puzzle to put out a fire in her head and save her from some flames. This puzzle is actually pretty good. I enjoyed trying to solve this puzzle actually. After the cross dive puzzle, we get another flashback with Raya. This time she's picking up an order of flowers and asks that she make some fireworks for her, as she cannot find any other crafters. The kind woman refuses to make fireworks for Raya, given her past with fireworks, and says that Raya is being disrespectful. The woman then makes the fatal mistake of comparing Raya to Lulu, saying that what Lucy said about Raya was true, that she's a reserved girl who doesn't have any friends. When the woman suggests that Raya ask Lulu for help on getting the fireworks, Raya freaks out and uses her power again. So I have a question, right? If Raya can use her powers to manifest money in our pocket, manipulate people into giving her what she wants, as seen in the movies in Chapter 1, and even create a whole cat paradise, why can't she simply manifest a complete Lintang festival with everything she wants? Or even use her power to create the fireworks she wants? The game's clearly shown that she has this power and has no problem using her power, so why doesn't she use it in the obvious way? If you know the answer, I mean, please let me know down below, unless it involves spoilers, in which case just let me know there's an answer to my question, but there's a spoiler tied to it. At the end of the cross dive, we obtain a flower that Madame Puspa gave to Lulu and leave the space dive. Madame Puspa comes back to her senses and apologizes for the outburst, but not before telling us that the last thing she remembers is Raya telling her that she would try to get Uncle Booty to get her the fireworks that she needs. Once again, though, the person that we just helped has no idea who Lulu is and states that they've never met before. This, once again, upsets Lulu, who blames it on Raya and calls her a freak. And I'm noticing now that Lulu's insults to Raya are getting progressively more and more harsh. We show Lulu the lily flower we received from the cross dive, and Lulu glitches out again and forgets everything about the flower, claiming to have no idea what it is. Whatever, off to the general store. We get to the general store and confront Booty on what is happening. Lulu said the magic word Raya, and the man starts freaking out while trying to say her name before glitching out and snapping back to his original line, like nothing had happened. This sparks the third argument that Lulu finds herself in. This time, she straight up confronts Booty about where is his son Eric, and why he hasn't been coming to school. Booty claims that he has no son, but as Lulu continues to press, he starts to remember Eric, and dropping hints that maybe their relationship wasn't that strong. But Lulu counters that thought by mentioning old memories of Eric and how much he loved his father. As this is happening, Booty grabs Lulu and appears to stick his whole fist in her mouth, which leads us to doing another space dive into Lulu. But things are a little bit different than normal. We get into the space dive and find things a mess, and Booty is still attacking Lulu. This leads to a mini boss fight of sorts, if you can even call it that. And the funny thing is though, they just gave Booty the name Eric's father for this fight, and don't even bother with his actual name. Anyways, we beat him up and start the cross dive onto him. I'm just so glad that this doesn't lead to a fetch quest to gather evidence again. That was starting to get really annoying. This cross dive is an interesting one. There are no puzzles here, and we just walk in a straight line while experiencing some memories that Booty has with Eric, and parenting moments, both good and bad. At the end of the cross dive, we get another flashback with Raya. This time, Raya wants to buy fireworks, but can't, because Booty is closing up shop early as Eric is missing. I wonder why. And he's worried about him. Booty asks Raya to let Eric on the committee, as it would help keep him straight in line and out of trouble. But Raya refuses because she doesn't want to be bullied and harassed by Eric and his goons anymore, which is perfectly understandable. Booty then realizes that Raya must have had something to do with his son's disappearance, but right as he says that, Raya uses her powers again on him, and the flashback ends. At the end of the cross dive, we get some ginger candy. Then we leave the space dive, and Booty doesn't remember who Lulu is, same as the previous two encounters. It seems that nobody remembers who Lulu is, and honestly, that makes sense, as Raya clearly does not like Lulu at all, so she probably just uses her powers to make everyone forget Lulu, so that they would stop making the comparisons of the two, which she clearly hated. I know it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out, as the game pretty much spells it out for you, but I feel like it's something important to point out here. Lulu gets upset that nobody's remembering her and storms out of the store. She then begins to question if her memories are even real at this point and mentions how alone she is. Lulu then starts to question whether she even exists at all before fading in and out of existence. You know, the thing that happens to everybody when they feel alone. We then take this opportunity by doing a space dive on Lulu again, this time to help her out instead of someone else. We enter the space dive and see everything even more of a mess than before. We also see a young Lulu crying all alone and decide to come to her aid. This puzzle is a really simple light puzzle that just involves shuffling orbs around to cross gaps in the floor. Nothing special or worth writing home about. We end up using all of the items we collected from the cross dives here also to unlock a crown for Lulu. We put the crown on her head, which makes her remember that she is strong with or without the approval of others. Completing this also gives us another piece of the story. A story that seems awfully familiar to what we just experienced. Kind of like the world we're living in is the story that Nirmala is writing. Things get interesting once again as Nirmala appears again and calls out for Lulu. We confront Bosk and ask if he really is the cat from our dreams. Bosk then states that we have no idea what even happened and asks if we can even distinguish dream from reality. He also mentions that the world must be ended to be saved. Nirmala then uses her power on Lulu and Bosk kicks us out of the space dive again. Back outside of the space dive, Lulu transforms into a giant swan and calls Raya a fake, whatever that means, then flies off. We then hear a meow, saying that we should go to the bridge, only for that voice to be Admiral's. She's alive, but not really the same, as the only thing that she says is that we should go to the bridge and that Raya is waiting for us. So we follow Admiral to the bridge and locate Raya. As we arrive at the bridge and see Raya, swan form Lulu arrives and confronts Raya. Lulu calls out Raya, stating that she made everyone her puppets, side characters in a story with her as the main character, and that Raya couldn't stand to live in the old reality, so she made this new one where she could control everything and anyone in it. This angers Supreme Leader Raya, who uses her power again on Lulu and appearing to injure her, but not kill her. Afterwards, she just starts laughing like nothing happened and asks us what's wrong. We start to pump Raya for answers to our many questions, so I'm just going to lay them out here in the order that I asked her. Raya first explains that the Lintang Festival was supposed to be this massive party so that they could accomplish one of their bucket list items together, and that everyone in town would be celebrating with them. Raya then explains that Eric is gone. She doesn't clarify that he's dead, just that he's gone, and that she did everyone a favor because he was just a pest. As we press her about this, she gets upset and states that she doesn't want to talk about Eric anymore, so we drop it. We then ask about the chaos in the city. Raya denies it being her doing and fault, and reminds us about the transgressors she felt from the sky, and that whatever it is, it's ruining her perfect plan. I don't know what she means by perfect plan, but whatever the plan is, I am not sure I want anything to do with it though. Raya is on some freaky shit here. The last thing we ask Raya is why she's controlling everything and everyone. Raya explains that it needs to be done and that she's been given this power, so she'll use it to fulfill her dreams and how she wants. She also explains that it has to be done. Raya then finishes by stating that we need to trust her, that she needs to remove all hurdles to make our dreams come true. Again, whatever that means. Lulu then speaks up and reminds Raya that the most perfect world is one with imperfection, and that's reality. Lulu then fades out of existence, just like how Eric did. As Raya is venting about why things had to turn out like this, a space dive flower appears above Raya, and already we know what must be done. However, Raya catches us trying to space dive on her and prevents it from happening. She then takes the book while freaking out at us and destroys it, I think. She then asks us if we even know what that book is, if we know how dangerous it is, and asks us who gave it to us. Raya then states that the book is a dark portent, a seed of calamity. She also states that the book belongs to the transgressor in the sky, and that we don't need to know how she recognizes it. This confirms my initial suspicion that Nirmala is the transgressor, which would mean that Raya is the Star Princess, maybe? This is when things start to get crazy though. Raya asks us why try to find some childish plaything when she can just show us the real deal. She then uses her power again, completing the cracks in the sky, which causes a blue comet to fall from the sky and just nuke everything. And that's where chapter 3 ends. Honestly, a pretty wild cliffhanger to be left on. I have seen the very beginning of chapter 4 with Marin up until that I could first save, so I'm still left wondering what the heck just happened and what's about to happen. And as of making this video and voiceover, I have not started chapter 4 yet, so please avoid spoiling me if you can. I'm really into this game now. And that's what happens in chapter 3. So before I wrap up the video, I want to go over my thoughts and theories and everything that I like to do at the end of every video. So the first thing I want to talk about is Nirmala's confirmed to be the transgressor, I think. And that's, I don't want to say surprising to me because again, I kind of saw it coming, but just to hear it, honestly, just hearing it helps me kind of put things in line, you know, because before it was just a theory and I thought that maybe there was a bunch of other misinterpretations that I was having and my predictions and everything would be all over the place. But hearing that Nirmala is the transgressor kind of helps me put all my theories in a line. And that leads me kind of into the next thing, that when Bosk says that we can't tell what's real and what's reality, and I believe it was the last video that I stated that it's possible that the world we're in right now is the like fantasy world and that the world with Nirmala is the real world. I don't know, but that theory is looking more and more likely. I don't think that's the case. I'm not 100% committed to it, but it's just a thought that I had. And the next thing about Bosk that I want to talk about is that Bosk says the world must end in order to be saved. So that really just confirmed to me that Bosk and Nirmala are definitely the villains. Because I said in the last video that I think it's possible that Raya is the villain, but I wasn't ready to fully commit to that just because I didn't have enough on Raya to fully convince myself that she was the main antagonist. She's definitely insane, but she's definitely not the villain. I can say that now with confidence. I don't think that Raya is the main villain. I think it's Nirmala and Bosk. But there's definitely a lot more with them than we know. And speaking of Raya, she said in that final conversation quite a bit that we need to trust her on everything. And that there's more going on than we know, kind of thing. And I absolutely believe her. I think that the game is kind of setting up Raya to look like this psychotic person. But there's a lot more going on. And I believe that. So I think Raya is, in fact, going to be like the Star Princess, and everything's going to be fine and dandy with her until she probably dies, because that's how the Star Princess ends in the prequel of the game, when you're hanging out with Nirmala. So my theory on Raya being the Star Princess and dying at the end of the game still stands. I still stand by that theory. Don't spoil it, though, for me, because I still have no idea. But I definitely believe Raya when she says to trust her, and that she's doing what she thinks is for the best. I think she's got a warped sense of what's good, and I think we help her with that at some point. I mean, it just feels obvious at this point, but I could be wrong. So I think I think Raya has a warped sense of what's right and wrong right now, and that we help her out with it. I also don't believe that Eric and Lulu are gone forever, because I know Raya said that Eric is dead at the end of Chapter 2, but she didn't specify that here in Chapter 3. She just said that he's gone. So I think that Lulu and Eric come back in like the finale or something, and it creates this like great big team up, because there's something special about Lulu also. And I feel like they're just too important right now to the story to just be written off like that. And it's the same for Marin. I think Marin's gonna have some sort of important role to play also. I think that this is a prediction for Chapter 4, and again, I haven't started it, but Chapter 4 starts with Marin, because as I said, I saw the beginning of Chapter 4, and so I think Marin is gonna have something similar to Lulu, where we're gonna go on some fetch quests with her, and she's gonna disappear also at the end of Chapter 4. That's what I think is gonna happen, but Marin, Lulu, and Eric are all gonna come back. Because that's been the trend that the game has been following so far. You have a character that the chapter kind of revolves around, and then they disappear at the end of it. And it just feels too important to be having these characters written off. The last thing I want to point out is, I've noticed this for a while, but I didn't want to speak on it just because I didn't really think much of it. But when Raya uses her power, there's the blue flower thing that shows up. But when we use our power and when Nirmala uses her power, they're both yellow. And I don't know, it's just something I've been thinking about. I don't have a theory yet for this besides the obvious good side and bad side kind of thing. But that's all I've got on that. I'm sure I'll have more of a theory on that once Chapter 4 comes and goes. So we'll see. I'm excited to see what the colors mean. And also I want to say, speaking of the yellow flowers, is that the Star Princess in the beginning has the yellow flower that she's using with the cat. But Nirmala's flower is yellow and Raya's is blue. So if Raya's the Star Princess, why is her power blue and not yellow? Why is our power and Nirmala's power yellow? I don't think Nirmala's the Star Princess, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. This is just theorizing. I'm just putting my thoughts out here. But yeah, that's what happens in A Space for the Unbound, Chapter 3, or Act 3, however you want to refer to it. This was a really good chapter, and I'm really excited to start Chapter 4. If you want to see my initial reactions to Chapters 1, 2, and 3, and the other chapters that are upcoming, however many of them there are, you can watch them here on the channel. I go live whenever I can, and The VODs stay up. They're all still up right now. So if you want to see my initial problem solving and reactions to these events, feel free to check them out. But that's all I've got. Thank you everybody for watching as always. And I will see you next Friday for Chapter 4 of A Space for the Unbound. So thank you everybody for watching, and until next time, bye for now.